Sofia's light. A joyful beginning. The sun shone gently over the quiet village of Ogugu in southeastern Nigeria, casting golden rays over red earth and green farmlands. Birds chirped on mango trees as women pounded yam in their courtyards. It was a peaceful morning, but for Obinna, that day was unlike any other. He stood in front of the village church, his heart pounding with excitement and nerves. Dressed in an ivory-colored traditional isiagu and red cap, he looked regal, proud, and deeply in love. His bride, Amaka, walked toward him, glowing in her white lace gown and coral beads. She was everything he had prayed for, beautiful, gentle, and virtuous. Their wedding was the talk of the village. Friends and family came from far and wide to celebrate with dancing, laughter, and food. Obinna, a respected teacher and palm oil trader, had finally found his joy. Amaka was a nurse at the local clinic, known for her kind heart and healing hands. Not long after, the couple was blessed with a baby girl. They named her Sofia, meaning wisdom. She had her mother's eyes and her father's calm spirit. From her first cry, Obinna fell in love all over again. "Now this pekin go light your future," the village prophetess told Obinna one day. "She carry great destiny." Obinna beamed with pride as he watched his daughter grow. Sofia took her first steps at 9 months, and by 2 years old, she was already asking questions about the moon, the stars, and why leaves fall. Her mind was sharp, her laughter infectious, and her bond with Amaka unbreakable. They were a picture of joy, a perfect family. On weekends, Obinna would carry Sofia on his shoulders as Amaka sang behind them. They'd walk to the village stream, eat roasted corn by the roadside, and tell stories under the moonlight. But as the old saying goes, happiness no day knock for long before sorrow open door. The empty house. It was a rainy Thursday when tragedy came. Amaka was returning from the clinic. A little girl had been bitten by a snake in a nearby village, and Amaka had gone to help. The road was slippery, the bus driver reckless, and fate unforgiving. The phone call came at dusk. Obinna dropped the bowl of Gary he was holding. He ran barefoot to the scene, arriving just in time to see her lifeless body being pulled from the wreckage. "No!" he screamed, falling to his knees. "Amaka, wake up, please!" But she was gone. The days that followed were a blur. Condolence visitors came and went. Sofia, only 5, clung to her father's wrapper, not fully understanding that her mother would never return. Obinna, shattered and hollow, sat in silence most days, staring into nothingness. He stopped going to the farm. He stopped singing. He stopped living. But the worst part wasn't what he lost. It was what he still had. A daughter who needed love, and a house filled with silence. The new wife. 2 years passed. Obinna, though still broken, tried to pull himself together for Sofia. He went back to farming, resumed trading palm oil, and took his daughter to school every morning. But loneliness is a quiet poison, and the village people began to talk. "A man cannot live alone forever," they said. "That girl needs a mother." That was when Chica came into the picture. She was younger, beautiful, and charming. She claimed she had known Amaka briefly and respected her memory. She treated Sofia with surface-level kindness, often giving her sweets and calling her Nay. At first, Obinna was hesitant, but Chica was persistent. She cooked, cleaned, helped at the farm. She played the role of a caring woman well. 6 months later, they married in a small traditional ceremony. The villagers rejoiced. Obinna smiled again. Sofia, however, remained quiet. She felt something off. Then Chica became pregnant with twins. The news was celebrated with great joy. When the babies arrived, they were named Esther and Paul. For a short time, it seemed Obinna had regained what he lost. But Sofia would soon learn, not all women who wear smiles carry kind hearts. The charm. At first, things seemed normal. Chica doted on the twins, and Obinna, relieved to see his home alive again, was too distracted by the twins' presence to notice the shift happening around him. Sofia, now 7, began to feel like a stranger in her own home. Her plate grew smaller during meals. Her clothes wore thin while Esther's and Paul's outfits gleamed with newness. Her chores doubled, washing, sweeping, fetching water, even as the twins did nothing but play and demand attention. Still, Sofia tried to be strong. She loved her father and wanted to make him proud. She told herself, "Papa will see everything one day." But the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, and Obinna only grew more distant. Then came the first slap. She had mistakenly dropped Paul's feeding bottle while cleaning the kitchen. Paul cried. Chica rushed in, saw the broken bottle, and without warning, struck Sofia hard across the face. "Useless girl! You won't kill my son?" Sofia held back tears and ran outside. When Obinna came home, she tried to tell him, but Chica was already waiting, holding Paul dramatically. "Your daughter bewitch," she said. "She nearly injured your son." Obinna looked at Sofia. Something in his eyes, once warm, had turned cold. "Sofia," he said sternly, "go inside. I no one hear story." From that day forward, it was as if a spell had been cast, and truly it had. Late one night, under the cover of darkness, Chica had traveled to a village deep in the forest. There, she visited a feared native doctor named Dibia Ugo. "I want his heart," she told the Dibia. "I want to be the only woman in his eyes. I want him to forget his first wife. I want him to see that girl as nothing." The Dibia handed her a charm made from dried leaves, ashes, and the feather of a black rooster. "Boil this in his food every Ninkwu market day, and hide this gourd under your marriage bed. His mind will belong to you, but if anyone finds the gourd, everything will end, and you will pay." She did exactly as told. From then on, Obinna was no longer the man people once respected. He spoke less to Sofia. He forgot her birthdays. He laughed only with Esther and Paul. Even when Sofia fell sick, he left her in the care of the housemaid. The village noticed the change. Rumors began. "That man don enter woman charm," the elders whispered. But Sofia had no proof, only her pain. Sofia's pain. Sofia's suffering became normal. She was 13 now, tall and graceful, with her mother's quiet strength. But life in the house had become unbearable. She was woken at dawn each day to sweep the compound. If she was late, Chica would beat her with a broomstick. At school, her uniforms were torn and her books old, while Esther flaunted the latest bags and gadgets. Paul mocked her constantly. "Bastard," he once spat. "Your mama die leave you like stray dog." Sometimes Sofia would sneak to the backyard and cry in silence, but she never allowed anyone to see her tears. One day, she returned from school to find her clothes burnt. Chica stood over the ashes. "You no go need them. From today, you know they go that school again." "Why?" Sofia asked, her voice trembling. "Because my husband know they waste money on nonsense. You go learn tailor work instead." "But Papa..." Obinna stood by the doorway, quiet, watching. Then he turned and walked away. That night, Sofia packed a small bag. She found her mother's photo hidden in an old cupboard. Holding it close, she whispered, "Mama, I no fit again. I go find my own light." Before dawn, she left the house and walked toward the city road, alone. Struggles in the city. The early morning mist clung to the edges of the road as Sofia boarded a rusty old bus bound for Enugu, the nearest city. She had only N3000, a worn bag, and her late mother's photo. She didn't know where she was going or who would help her. All she had was the will to survive. The city was a different world, noisy, fast, and unforgiving. Car horns blared. Strangers brushed past her without a glance. Buildings towered over her like giants, and the scent of roasted plantain mixed with exhaust fumes filled the air. For the first few nights, Sofia slept in a market stall near Ogbete Main Market, curling into herself for warmth. She survived on sachet water and leftovers from food vendors who took pity on her. But pity doesn't last in the city. By her second week, hunger gnawed at her belly like a wild animal. She hadn't bathed properly, her clothes were dirty, her legs ached, but still she refused to go back. She would rather die than return to that house. One day, while scavenging near a buka, she caught the attention of a woman named Mama Ifeoma, who owned a small roadside restaurant. "You no get home?" Mama Ifeoma asked. Sofia nodded. "You go wash plate?" Sofia's eyes lit up. "Yes, Ma!" That was how her new life began. For months, she washed plates, cleaned pots, served food, and scrubbed floors. She earned just enough for a room in a wooden shack behind the market and 2 meals a day. But Sofia never complained. At night, she read old school books she picked from the market dustbin. She listened to English on the radio to improve her speech. When customers left newspapers behind, she read every page, hungry for knowledge. One evening, while washing dishes, she overheard a group of women discussing a free training program sponsored by an NGO for young women interested in catering and event planning. Sofia ran to the address the next morning. She was accepted. Love finds her. The training lasted 6 months. Sofia learned how to cook professionally, bake cakes, plan events, and manage money. She graduated top of her class and was offered a job as an assistant caterer for a large event company. Life began to change. With her small salary, she bought new clothes, rented a small self-contained room in a Kara layout, and started sending money to her former teacher in the village to help sponsor another poor girl's school fees. She smiled more, laughed more. Hope returned to her eyes. Then, at a wedding event, she met Steve. Steve was in his early 30s, tall, respectful, and easygoing. He owned a tech startup and had hired Sofia's company for his sister's wedding. He noticed her immediately, not just her beauty, but the way she handled pressure, managed the kitchen, and remained humble even when guests shouted at her. After the wedding, he approached her. "I like your work ethic," he said, "and your heart." Sofia blushed. "Thank you, sir." He offered her a side contract to cater a small office party. She accepted. 1 contract became 2, then 5. Soon, Steve became a regular presence in her life, bringing food, taking her to events, helping her open her own small catering business called Sofia's Kitchen. They fell in love slowly and quietly. There were no grand gestures, just shared values, mutual respect, and deep conversations. 2 years after they met, Steve proposed during a small beach picnic in Lagos. Sofia cried. She remembered her mother. She remembered the mango tree back home. She remembered the day she ran away alone and hungry. Now she was here, loved, respected, successful. They got married in a quiet but beautiful ceremony attended by a few close friends and Steve's family. But back in the village, darkness had begun to knock on Chica's door. Fall of the twins. The twins, Esther and Paul, had always been spoiled in the village. Their mother's charm on Obina ensured they had everything: new clothes, the best food, and the freedom to do as they pleased. But wealth and freedom without discipline are a dangerous mix. Esther was the first to fall into trouble. At university, she was known for her beauty and charm. She had suitors lining up, young men with money, cars, and promises. But Esther cared little for love. She wanted status, gifts, and the thrill of being desired. She slept with many men, often without protection. Rumors spread quickly. One day, she collapsed during a lecture. A doctor diagnosed her with HIV. The news devastated her. She tried to hide it, but the stigma was suffocating. Her health deteriorated rapidly as she ignored medication and continued risky behavior. She died alone in a cheap guest house 2 years later, far from home, her body frail and wasted. Paul's downfall was different but equally tragic. At university, he fell into the wrong crowd. Young men obsessed with wealth at any cost. They introduced him to money rituals, the dark practice of blood money, where human sacrifices were made to gain riches. Paul was eager. He thought this was the shortcut to power and respect. He began participating in sinister rituals, stealing from friends, and becoming more violent. One night, Paul disappeared. Days later, his body was found near a riverbank, his throat slit, a ritual knife beside him. The villagers whispered that karma had finally caught up. Back in the village, Chica's grip on power began to falter. One day, the housemaid, Neka, discovered a strange gourd hidden beneath Chica and Obina's bed. It was the charm, old, dusty, and powerful. Terrified, Neka took the gourd to the village pastor. The pastor gathered the family and began a cleansing ritual. Flames flickered as prayers filled the air. Chica screamed and raved. Her madness was complete. The charm breaks. Obinna, freed from the charm's spell, looked at his hands, once cold, now warm. He called out for Sofia. He searched, and finally found her thriving in the city. Reconciliation and healing. Obinna's heart pounded as he stepped onto the dusty streets of Achara layout, the city where his daughter now lived. Years of regret and pain had weighed heavily on his shoulders, but the curse that once clouded his mind was gone. He carried a small wrapped bundle, a gift for Sofia. The market buzzed around him, but all he could see was the woman he had wronged. Sofia, his daughter, stronger and more beautiful than he ever imagined. When he finally found her humble catering shop, Sofia was stirring a pot, humming softly. She looked up and froze. "Papa?" Her voice was soft, uncertain. Obinna knelt, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Sofia, my daughter, I am so sorry for everything. Please forgive me." Sofia studied him, the man who had abandoned her, who had ignored her pain. She saw the sincerity in his eyes. Slowly she smiled, a smile full of forgiveness and hope. "Papa," she said, "let's start again, together." From that day, Obinna and Sofia rebuilt their bond, brick by brick, meal by meal. Steve welcomed Obinna with open arms, proud to be part of their family. Sofia's kitchen flourished, becoming a beacon of hope for young women seeking a new life in the city. And far away, in the village, Chica's madness was a warning whispered by the winds, a reminder that evil sows only sorrow. Sofia's light shone bright, proof that even after the darkest nights, the dawn brings a new beginning. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.